How many of you are sick and tired of being censored on social media? It doesn't matter if it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you're going to get censored, especially if you're conservative, and your information is going to be collected. So we all know what's going on. It's no surprise. And people are looking for places to go. Well, check it out. ConnectZing.com was created by my good buddy Drago. You can listen to episode number 2 of this podcast and learn all about him. He is a Polish immigrant who was held in a socialist re-education camp, aka prison, for 3 years for being part of a freedom underground in Poland. He came to America when he got out. He became an American citizen and then a Navy SEAL for 20 years. You couldn't ask for somebody better than Drago to build a social media platform that gives you true freedom of speech. I don't know anyone who's been oppressed to that level personally in the United States. No one. Well, guess what? When Drago left the Navy, he became a computer programmer, and he has created this incredible social media platform that's familiar to what you've seen, but the biggest difference is the censorship not going to be there. Go check it out, ConnectZing.com. It's one word, ConnectZing. Go check it out. Zing me. You can look me up. I'll be on there. And all my friends that are coming from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they'll all be there as well. ConnectZing.com. And let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back in on the Experts Podcast. Happy Monday. The truth has arrived. Booyah! There's a lot to cover. Short period of time. Not going to keep you here all morning. But, yeah. One of the things I was thinking about today is this morning as I was reading all the headlines was that, and I tweeted about this, you know, I'm always tweeting at night, like 3 a.m, that if you, this is what the tweet says. Let me pull it up here. It says, if you met someone that gossiped, lied, and forced their opinion on you 24 hours a day, every day, would you invite them to live with you? Take a minute and see if this description fits anything in your life. Now smash your cable box. That is all that you get on TV, in media, on these social media apps. Let me tell you, I'm shocked, and also online on the media publications, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But this TikTok thing drives me crazy, right? Because it's like nobody reads the reports on this thing, right? It is China spyware, and all these young people are out there doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't know if you saw about Kellyanne Conway's daughter. And what she was doing. I mean, this kid's got problems. She's just typical of this generation of young kids that think they know more than anyone around them. I mean, this moron, this 15-year-old moron, Kellyanne Conway's daughter, and she is a moron. I think Kellyanne Conway's an amazing person, to be honest with you. I think her husband is the biggest, douchiest person in Washington, D.C., and that says a lot. I mean, he's just a fat nobody. But seems like his daughter is a chip off the old block. But in no disrespect to Kellyanne Conway, because she does an amazing job in where she works and around the president, but her moronic daughter thinks that she knows more about life and politics and the First Amendment than her mom, who works in the White House. I mean, this is the typical mentality of the young people. Meanwhile, she's using TikTok to do no telling what, and they've already shown that you should not download that program. That, to me, bothered me way more than anything Kellyanne Conway's daughter did on was saying with her on TikTok. I mean, I don't care if families have spouts. That's going to happen. But I think she's a brat for airing that, and it's just a sign of the times. But what about the fact that her daughter is going around, because I'm sure she didn't just do this for that once, but she's going around with that downloaded on her phone, live in front of her mom, who works for the president and probably knows all kinds of sensitive information. I just think these things are not being thought out by people that are in very serious positions in Washington, D.C. You know, your kids may download these social media apps. They may not be brats like this girl, but they may be downloading these apps because everybody else does it and unknowingly exposing their parents who work in sensitive areas like the CIA or the FBI or in the White House to spyware. And is no one thinking about this in Washington, D.C.? You know, listen, folks, I know that it's rubbed people the wrong way sometimes when I bring up what I've done in my career. But I mean, that's all I have to fall back on is my experience in life and what I've striven for, my mom, you know, and what she taught me in my college education. You know, who I am is not one particular thing. I'm not just this or not just that. I'm a mixture of all these different experiences and in life and in careers that I chose that were the most difficult in the world. But I don't think you have to go through that in order to be smart enough to realize that when it is discovered something is spyware, that you don't put it on your kids' phones and let them just go hog wild with it when you're in a sensitive position in government. I mean, it's not rocket science here. Just another sign of the times. How people and agencies and just society in general, they do not evolve with the issues that are happening, the technologies that are out there. I mean, take for instance, okay, crime as we know it has evolved way past where it was 30 years ago or even 20 years ago. But let's say before 9/11, okay, 20 years ago. So let's say 25 years ago. Crime was just different. Crime was different. Warfare was different. Once the beheading started, and I know after 9/11, it's not like they didn't do beheadings over in the Middle East before, but after 9/11, these things started becoming more often at an alarming rate and televised. And then you had Al-Qaeda, you know, burning someone alive, a Jordanian pilot, drowning men in cages, all these different things, and people saw this stuff. And 9/11 in general just kind of changed the psyche of the world, really. And as these terrorist incidents occurred around the world and they were broadcast, I truly believe that, along with video games, I think it's very, very simple. The way media has literally just broadcasted murder, like where you can see it live. And I don't care who you are. When you see the soul depart a human being, especially in a violent way, it will change you. You know, I was with my father when he passed, and I saw him right there when I was 13 years old. And when you have seen somebody with a soul in them, and then in an instant there's no soul in them, there is a difference there, and it changes you. And I've been with many people as they passed throughout the years. And and my dogs, and it always has a dramatic impact on me. And I'm a pretty hardened guy. But I'm telling you, when this violent nature of killing is broadcast like it is and has been for the past 20 years, along with the video games and the departure of any type of religious aspect of people's lives and family, along with this narcissistic media and the willingness of people to believe whatever they're told, we have seen a change in the violent behavior of criminals and terrorists. I mean, terrorists are one thing. They long for that gut punch of visual stimulus that will just grow fear in a community or in a citizenry. That's their whole goal. The use of fear, intimidation, and violence for political aim. Gee, doesn't that meet the mix of just about everybody in Washington, D.C. and all these activists, right? Well, as the violence or as the ethics and all these things have become more aware, the violence of these criminals inside the United States has gone absolutely overboard, where they're just killing. They don't care. 8-year-old, kill them. Chicago, massive amounts of people. New York, homicide rates up over 200%. Killing, 200% in the month of June alone. And so what has happened is that as this has evolved and gotten extremely more violent, and not to say that killers were ethical, but just total disregard for human life, that you would equate with, a third world country. Law enforcement has not evolved with that. They still look at things like I watch all these unsolved mystery things. It's some of those just spin my head when I watch these unsolved mystery cases, because I'm sitting here thinking, did the cops think of this? Did they think of that? But they didn't. They didn't think of that. And they don't think about those things because they haven't evolved. Up until, like I said, 20 years ago, or really more recently in the past 10 years, we would never in this country have even thought about sustained attacks. But now you have to consider that. But law enforcement, federal and state and local, have not evolved to the point where they are prepared for sustained attacks in a city or multiple cities. I mean, literally, they will waste their resources. I think these protests show that. They are not prepared because they have not evolved to the point where they forward think. I told the story before in the Bureau when I was running the special events unit in New York City for the FBI. That's where I did all the threat assessments for any major event or where an incident could happen in the city. I built operations orders for those, and then I was the on-scene coordinator when those things were going down. I helped coordinate with all the other law enforcement entities. It was a job in the FBI that I could use all my experience from being an attacker and defender. That's where I came up with the idea for the book that I wrote. I was sat down by an assistant special agent in charge who sat me on the couch in his office and said, "Jonathan, you're doing an amazing job." I said, "Thank you, sir." He goes, "Stop doing it. You're pissing everybody off. Your job is to shake hands and not try to forward think everything." Those are his exact words. They ring so sharply in my head because leftists, narcissists, just totally incompetent morons are in positions in law enforcement where they don't forward think these things. Well, that whole long explanation being said, the same thing goes with something as simple as a social media app. And when I'm watching Kellyanne Conway argue with her daughter, who's on TikTok live, acting like a moron, and then also a video with her and her dad where she's doing the same thing, I kept thinking the whole time, do they not realize she's walking around with a Chinese listening device? And I don't think that they even contemplate that, because society hasn't evolved. They don't realize the games that are being played on them. And it transcends law enforcement and social media. We can look at, and I've been telling people this over and over, as long as after the day that I realized this, it became something that I could not tell enough people about, that the reality of media is that it's a joke. It is a game being played on all of us. It is either sensationalized so they can get advertising and ratings and make money, or it is a leftist agenda to continue the conspiracy to overthrow our government for a leftist, globalist narrative, or not narrative, ideology. So I tweeted this out again a couple hours ago before I did this show. If you want insight into the leftist mindset behind the scenes at Fox News, yes, surprise, surprise, Fox News. Go right now and look at Twitter and look up Brie Stimson, Brie Stimson, Stimson. She's the breaking news editor at Fox News. And when you look at her page, her Twitter page, right? The second tweet that comes up is Nancy Pelosi. She's retweeted Nancy Pelosi talking about the Allied forces. She doesn't do Twitter a lot, it seems like, this girl. Then we scroll down 4 or 5 more. Barack Obama talking about how things should be done in this country. You keep going down and you see stuff bashing the president. Ronan Farrow, she's retweeting him. I hate to use the term woman, this female, I don't know where she's from. She lives in Los Angeles, evidently, but she's a leftist through and through. All the stories that she does, I put them all out. I did a whole show. The last episode 58, was done about a video where this white couple was basically being verbally assaulted and threatened, and then not allowed to leave a parking lot of a restaurant, Chipotle, in Oakland County, Michigan. And Brie Stimson writes the story, and the headline says, "White couple arrested after gun pulled on black family." That's the whole story. And when you read through the story, it makes them look like they were just these victims, when in reality, and I posted the video all over, you see the reality is that these two people that had white skin, again, I always make this disclaimer, I don't like tagging people with the color of their skin and using that as a narrative unless they've done something criminal. But in this case, a white guy and his white wife, who may or may not have been pregnant, I don't know if she was or not, were accosted by a black woman and her 15-year-old daughter, who said that the white woman had bumped into her inside the restaurant, and they would not let them leave. And first they were cursing them out. The mom said she was going to beat both of their white asses. And then as they're trying to back out of the parking lot, which after they tried to defuse the whole situation, the white couple, and it was apparent how much they tried to defuse the situation, the mom, the black lady, goes and hits the back of their car as they're backing up, so loud that you could hear it on the cell phone video. I thought for a minute she'd broke her back window, and the woman inside the car, the white woman, gets out and pulls her gun and starts yelling at them to get back so they could get out of the parking lot, which to me was totally justified, because the way that they had escalated this was tremendous. And I have experience having gone through, local law enforcement training and 2 federal agencies in law enforcement training. And all of them, I can sit there and look at this and say, she had every right in the world to draw her weapon, although I wouldn't have in this case, and I made that clear in episode 58. I would have stayed in the car and called law enforcement in that circumstance, because if you draw a weapon and try to scare somebody away, it is a bad move. You have to literally, you do not draw your weapon if you're a civilian until there is an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. And I mean imminent. It has to be where it is just about to happen and you draw your weapon and you use your weapon, not to scare people away. You use it to eliminate that threat. And we have to get that through our heads that that's when you use it. Okay. But in the eyes of the law, well, in the eyes of a non-leftist law, it is, if you can articulate that you felt that there was an imminent threat, which she may have well felt that way. She was told her white ass was going to get kicked, and then the lady behind him punched the car. She may have felt like there was an imminent threat. Either way, I looked at the video. I thought it was justified. But when you look at the way Bree Stimson wrote it, it made it sound like it was just a white on black crime. Then on the 4th of July, she writes about Colin Kaepernick and how he feels, poor Colin Kaepernick, how he thinks that the 4th of July is a white racist holiday. So, I mean, she didn't write anything in there about the reality of what Independence Day is all about. It's not the 4th of July. That's the date that it happens on. It's Independence Day. It's about when this country, through the hard work of these incredible men, fought for and declared our independence from a tyrannical government. If that day had not occurred and that Declaration of Independence had not been written and enacted, and the Revolutionary War hadn't been fought, and the Constitution hadn't been drafted, guess what? Most likely in this world, there would still be slavery on a massive scale. But because these slave owners, which was the thing in that day and age, it wasn't outlawed in the world, but because these men who owned slaves fought for their own independence and then wrote a constitution that acknowledged the rights granted by God in that constitution, a series of events were set in motion that would ensure all people would be free. None of that was in the article by Bree Stimson on the 4th of July. None of it. And that is the depth at which Fox News has gone. Now, the reason I'm pointing this stuff out is that just like what I said about social media and about law enforcement not evolving with the tactics of the bad guys, you, the partaker of conservative media, have failed to realize who is behind the scenes. I shouldn't say failed to realize. You just may not be privy to that information. But the reality is I'm giving you that information now. You should share this with everyone, just like I've shared it with you. Bree Stimson is a perfect example of the reality of that game that's been being played on you about conservative news media. There are very few real conservatives behind the scenes in media, even at Fox News. You look at any network that says they're conservative, there's going to be liberals behind there. And in the case of Fox News, I would say that the majority of people that work behind the scenes at Fox News are liberal. And not just liberal, they're leftists like Bree Stimson, an activist who is the breaking news editor of Fox News. This is the reality of what's going on in this country. And for some reason, watching that video with Kellyanne Conway and her moronic daughter, who is the spawn of her moronic husband, watching that video it just made I've had this realization for a long time, But it was the perfect example I felt that I could share with you to show you the reality of how these things are changing and nobody's evolving with it. Another example, teachers around the country are losing their jobs because of these idiotic, 15 to 20-year-olds. I mean, who gets out of high school and still keeps considering high school? But these people do. But they're going all over the country, and they are getting together and complaining, making up stuff about racism or sexual abuse against conservatives. Not only teachers that are conservative and Trump supporters, but also students, like athletes who have gotten scholarships. They will write the schools and say that kid's a sexual predator to try to get his scholarship or her scholarship revoked. And law enforcement has not evolved with this. I've talked to multiple FBI, local law enforcement. All of them are the same. They're like, well, what laws have they broken? I mean, what laws have they broken? If it wasn't on social media, let's just say that a group of 5 or 10 young people between the ages of 15 and 20 went to the school and lied and said that they were sexually harassed, or that this individual said something that was racist about somebody else. And then they found out that was a lie. I mean, law enforcement and the school board would immediately investigate that, first of all. And then once it didn't pan out, because this stuff usually doesn't pan out, it should be a criminal investigation for making false accusations. One, of a nature of something as threatening or is like racism or a sexual assault. They're making false allegations about that. And then the other thing is that they're defaming and slandering for the purpose of ruining people's lives, and they are conspiring to do it. I tell you what, let's take a break for just a second. We're going to come back, and I'm going to finish this thought. We'll be right back. Now, I know everybody's unnerved right now because of all the things that are going on. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner, a parent, or a single person. You could be a target of attack. Now, you, believe it or not, can actually make educated predictions as to who would attack you, why they would attack, when and where those might happen, and how it could be carried out. But you need a base of knowledge as your foundation. Now, I've created a system that gives you that base of knowledge. It starts with Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It shows you exactly how attackers look at you, how they discover the information that you already know about yourself and your business and your family, and they use that to discover the vulnerabilities that you have so they can manipulate those and attack you. It has 2 workbooks that come with it. The first one is the threat assessment workbook, where you apply that knowledge from the attacker's point of view, and then you use that information to fill out the defense assessment workbook so that you can actually build better defenses. And for the young people in your family, the children, there's The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. It's a book of amazing pictures with lessons built into it. The parents go to teamlittlebigs.com, download the lesson plans, and teach their children by using the pictures, safety awareness, and communications. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. This is how you secure your homeland. And let's get back to the show. See, this is a problem. Law enforcement doesn't evolve with the crimes. They don't evolve with the tactics of the bad people. And they're so consumed with this, I see this with people all the time. Van Buren County in Arkansas is a perfect example. The sheriff there, worthless. The sheriff's department, worthless. And it's ran by this sheriff who, made his career on a drug task force. So now that's the only thing that they concentrate on, right? That's it. And they don't even do that well, right? Because the majority of them, they don't have any concept outside of Van Buren County on what's effective in law enforcement. And so it's the same thing here. These people that are in charge of law enforcement, and many of the officers, they don't think beyond whatever the crime is that they typically work. And nor do the school boards, because they're all leftists. And the majority of people, they don't realize that what's happening is a crime, and it's unethical, and it's dangerous. And it's infuriating to me when I sit back and I watch what's happening in all these different areas that I've explained. And it's, like I said, not rocket science. And I cannot for the life of me, except for pure effing laziness, figure out why law enforcement is not seeing this. And why the rest of the community is not seeing this. Why conservatives aren't seeing this. Everybody turns Fox News on and they just leave it on in the background. And something comes on, they listen to it, and so the ratings go up. But when you look at the reality of what's being reported, when you look at the reality of who these personalities are and the people that work in the background, you're going to see that it's a game being played on you. And the majority of information that you can get it just like I'm doing, where I just kind of scour the different like Drudge and FoxNews.com and CNN.com and all these different news outlets or aggregates. I mean, there's tons of them out there, and you can go and you can get the information, and you can pull out where, this is probably the truth, or this headline is missing. You got to look past the headlines. The headlines don't tell you anything. And you can get some sort of news. One American News is also, I think, a good outlet to get your news from. Your basic news of world events. See, there's a difference between world events and 24-hour gossipy type of news. I mean, the reality is most news that is reported isn't even, it's not much better than People magazine, to tell you the truth, or Extra. That show Extra, that's like your brain waves are dying. That's basically what it's like when you listen to that. Or The View. I mean, you watch that show more than 3 times in a week, and you literally, I think it's worse for your body than COVID. So the whole point of this whole rant is that we are missing the mark across the board with the way things have changed in this country. We give such a voice to young people, and this has become drastically increased in the past 50 years, where young people have been given more and more of a voice, and quite frankly, they are dumber and dumber as the years progress. More narcissist. Less well-rounded. They're not well-rounded. They don't speak multiple languages or play musical instruments or even know how to write with a pencil in cursive. I mean, not that we would ever use that anymore, it seems like, but it's learning these things. That whole term about well-rounded, your brain is a mechanism that the more you know, the better it functions. And they stopped with that. They stopped teaching that. The Department of Education is very left. It's communist. So bottom line here on this issue is that we've given too much voice to young people. We've given too much legroom to criminals and to deceitful people, nefarious people, and agencies, and we have not evolved. We have not evolved on the side of honor and integrity and street smarts and policing. The good guys have not evolved, And we are definitely paying the price for that now. Absolutely paying the price for that now. I hope you see that. You know, when I'm looking at these stories, and one of the things I want to talk about, well, there's really not much to say about it. Listen, I'll put it to you this way. There was, and this is a big difference between what we call militias and groups like that came out in Virginia against the second, where they're trying to eliminate the Second Amendment. And you had militias and different people that were Second Amendment supporters, and they came out 20,000 strong and protested in Virginia. And this was several months ago, and it was amazing. Stood there peaceful. They showed their force. Or in Michigan, for instance, those protesters were there protesting against Gretchen Whitmer, and they were armed. But they didn't say that they were going to kill her or they're going to kill this or kill that. They went there and just reminded the government there in Michigan that they're the ones that are in charge, that the people are in charge. Now, you contrast that to these communist Black Lives Matter, Black Panther type of morons that showed up at Stone Mountain in Georgia this weekend on the 4th of July, all dressed in black. Many of them, this one picture's going around, fat as a hog, this one guy, so fat that his BDU pants, or the black military pants, were stretched to the capacity they're about to rip, and he had a malfunction in his weapon that he had obviously not cleared. So if he did want to go to battle with that gun, it wasn't going to do anything anyway. But besides being stupid and fat, the majority of the people that were out there, I would say all the people that were out there with this group, were there in a very threatening manner. The idiot that was speaking was again and again saying that there was no more talking. They were there to fight. Where are the militias? Where are the 3%ers? Come out here. We're here. Let's get it on. Let's fight. Now, it's like beating a dead horse when I say that if this was white militia people, or even it was white and some black militia people they're out there for the right reasons and not even threatening anybody. I mean, we saw that again in Michigan. You would have seen the media out there saying that these are white supremacists, that they're there trying to intimidate or start a fight or a civil war. It would have been reported completely different. You know, I saw a story somebody just posted a while ago. I don't know where this was, but evident, you know how they're going around the country in different places and they're painting Black Lives Matter on the streets, right? And they call in the Fox, the local Fox station is what it was, who was reporting this. They called those people artists, but I guess some people came after that and painted over it with black to make it the color of the road again, and they were called vandals. So that's the way the news reports this stuff. But anyway, this group that showed up, and I'm not really going to say any more about it. You can watch the videos. There's videos all over the place of these Black Lives Matter, Black Panther type of militant, black separatist, black supremacist group that came out there. It was laughable. It was laughable. And why? Yes, they had weapons, but laughable because they are the extent of that group. And even if they had 10,000 more, the fact is that here's what you have to understand, bad guys that are out there, is that ultimately your schemes will come crashing because, as Christ says, you know, when you build your house upon the sand, basically it's going to get destroyed. It's not going to stand. The foundation is not there. You see, we the people, our foundation is in freedom. It's in God-given rights and in the defeat of tyranny. And what these thugs are trying to push is tyranny, is separation. Remember, I told you, look up liberation theology. Whether it's Black Lives Matter or certain groups of Catholicism, it's not really Catholicism. They call themselves Catholic liberation theology or Black liberation theology. It's liberation theology, which is rooted in communism. And again, I don't care what people call themselves, communists, socialists, globalists, progressives, progressive Democrats. They are communist. They are of a mindset of divisiveness, and then through that divisiveness will the rooted people that believe in this utopia will rise up, and basically the cream will be scooped up, and they will live in a utopia without a government. You want to see how good that works? Look at these autonomous zones. It doesn't work. Humankind has progressed to a point where there has to be some form of authority in order to govern over them. We have too much in this world. We live too long. People have it too easy. And so what happens is they get together and they grumble and they plot. They don't get together and make sure that each other are okay, or, make sure that the elderly are taken care of. They don't get smarter and therefore get healthier. No, that's not the way it works. Obesity is out of control. Why? Because they can order on their phone and not even have to leave home now. Before it was fast food. Now it's, I'm hungry, I'm going to order it and have it brought here. We have not evolved, folks. We have not evolved. The good guys have not evolved. Now, that being said, and let's put that other story to the side because I'm not really concerned with those idiots. But I will tell you what in Georgia. But I will tell you what the ramifications are of this all over the country. And New York is a good example of this. New York, with their weirdo mayor who is a communist, a confessed communist. I don't know if he's confessing that out loud as much now, but he worked for the communist Nicaraguans while we were at war with them. He and his wife both are communists. His parents are communists. And New York, you hired him, New York City. And what you've gotten in return of that is COVID-19 was not handled properly. Black Lives Matter protests are out of control to the point where they're blocking people getting in and out of the city in certain locations, and turned it basically into no-go zones. Murder has skyrocketed. Shops have been looted, and over 500,000, including myself, middle-class residents have left. I don't live in New York City anymore. I've lived there for 15 years. I moved out in April, right before I got COVID. And the number of shootings has already reached 616 this year, up 51%. And in June, there are 250 shootings as compared to 97 in the same month in 2019. That is what's happening all over the country. It's not just here in New York. It is all over the place. And it's because we have failed to evolve, and we have allowed the bad guys, and we have allowed the loud people, and we have allowed the communists to get a foothold. And this is where we are now. I'm going to leave that one to the end. Let me just, this is another good example. I forgot I even brought this story up. Okay. So I'm looking at this story about when they went and got Ghislaine Maxwell, right? They arrested her in New Hampshire. The FBI arrested her. $4.9 million for a covert operation to follow her. And in typical FBI fashion, they had, like 30 agents out there and went in and arrested her in this home. When I can guarantee you, once they got surveillance, once they located her, they should just arrested her. I mean, first of all, the U.S. Attorney's Office moves like freaking sap water. They don't move at all. And so when unless it's something that's going to make them a big, big case. This case is very strange to me because nobody talks about who she worked for. I think I brought that up in the last episode. But So $4.9 million to arrest one person. Where did all that money and those resources go? Why was it so much? You could have put a couple of hard-charging agents on this case. They could have located her, and then it's not like she is somebody known to be armed and dangerous. They could have just went and knocked on the door and arrested her. You put a plane up and you make sure she's followed, and you arrest her. And then you search the house. Then you bring in the people to search the house. $4.9 million, where'd that come from? How did they spend $4.9 million on finding this woman who was eating in public at one point? So this is the thing. So that story to the side. The thing that stood out to me is that, so they were preparing to storm this New Hampshire hideout where she was staying. And one of the neighbors complained about the plane circling overhead. Now, I know some of the people who work in that division, and they're great guys. I don't know why the plane was that low that they noticed that. I don't know. But let me read this part of the story where it says, as agents prepared to move in on Maxwell, a neighbor approached a convoy of vehicles parked nearby. Now, they were staged, I'm sure, and it was 6 in the morning, and they were staged, waiting to go in and get her. That's what they do. They stage and they get everything in place, and then there's probably certain agents that put her down there so they knew she was there, and that's the other thing that the Bureau loves to do. Versus regular law enforcement. They will put a surveillance team on somebody, follow them around, put them down at a specific time, and then bring in SWAT to go in and arrest them. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's totally done that way because SWAT and the whole mentality of law enforcement has gone to SWAT, and they have, where it used to, especially in the FBI, you were an FBI agent, man. You were a G-man. Right? You see all these. I remember when we were doing the 100-year anniversary of the FBI, and they published this book with all these pictures and stuff in it, and you could see that the FBI agent was not to be messed with. But now you got FBI agents that are marching in protest and kneeling. So this mindset that a regular FBI agent can't arrest her. We've got to follow her, put her down, and then let the SWAT team go in and get her. It's ridiculous. The FBI even got to a point where they weren't letting anybody do certain types of warrants. They would have to have like a drug warrant, for instance, that the SWAT team would have to do that. A lot of law enforcement agencies went to that. Why? I don't know. Except for the fact that they're either not preparing and training their agents and officers correctly, or most likely the reason is because SWAT leaders got their little piece of the power pie, and they made themselves more awesome, and that depleted the rest of the forces in the FBI and in local law enforcement the same way. So anyway, the whole point of me telling the story is because it sums up perfectly with the ridiculous, narcissistic stupidity that's just rushing through this nation and the world. So one of the residents of the area told the Mirror, that's where I'm reading this off of, not like it's any credible, but anyway, that's where the story was. The plane had been buzzing around since 5 a.m. They were a nuisance. We began calling each other, so all these people know each other. They're all rich. These people are rich, I'm sure. Calling each other to find out what the noise was about. Finally, one of the neighbors snapped and drove down to where the vehicles were lined up. Like this guy, the fact that this person would do this is so mind-boggling, narcissistic, that they couldn't figure out that something was going on and maybe they should just let these things occur. I mean, it's not like bad guys are going to be flying a plane around. It's probably some government thing going on. And if this person says they finally snapped and drove down there, that means I could only imagine that the aggressive nature this idiot had when they went down there. He said he demanded to know who they were, and and of course the Bureau had something, they were going to tell them, and they told him that they were the New England Aerial Map Society, which that was fictitious. And the problem was, I mean, and this always happens, ask anybody in law enforcement, when you try to tell somebody a lie like that, you know, you better make sure that nobody in that area is into maps and geology, which obviously evidently this guy is an expert in maps and geology. It's what he does for a living, according to this person. At that point, the upset neighbor, according to the story, demanded that he see inside their van, but was told to back off. Now, what kind of a moron, right, would go to the extent of saying, you know, I want to see in your van. Who are you? Like, he's the authority of this neighborhood. Stupid idiot. He told his wife, because he was told to get away from the van. So he went and told his wife, and she called the police. So this guy is so much of a pussy that he couldn't call the cops himself. He had his wife do it. Pardon my French. It fits it perfectly. What a freaking turd. The other resident said it was hilarious. That's what they told the Mirror, which is this Daily Mail thing from the UK. Funny that the UK is reporting this. Now, here's the thing. Here, when I was looking at this, here's what was running through my brain. This idiot almost blew the arrest, not the FBI. This idiot, because of his narcissistic, you know, I'm in charge. Who are you? Who's in this van? Oh, I'm a geologist. I'm a map guy. You know, you're not going to lie to me. I demand to see what's in the van. That idiot almost blew the arrest of somebody that was literally trafficking underage people and committing sex crimes with one of the most notorious people, Jeffrey Epstein, in the world for child and underage pedophilia and trafficking. Now, doesn't seem as funny when you think about it that way. And see, that's the problem. Along with all this other stuff about people not evolving. You know, I'm critical of law enforcement because I am one of them. And I was critical then when I was in. I'm critical now because they don't evolve and morons are at the top. But this is an example of society and how the same thing has happened there. You can criticize cops all day. It's an institution, right? It can change. But the people are just as stupid, if not worse, that you would go up, there's a plane flying over, there's like 30 cars there, you know, with people looking. It's not like these guys aren't, you can't identify them as doing something that's official. And you're going to come down there because it's disturbing me and not realize that something important is happening. I mean, his ability to discern a serious situation and critically think that maybe something bigger than me is going on right now. Maybe we should just sit back and watch and shut our mouths. No, he had to come down there and do this, almost disrupt the arrest of this pedophile, this global pedophile, this global trafficker of young women for sex, this pedophile that is connected to some of the most powerful people in the world that need to be brought down, and this idiot almost blew it. That is a sign, an incredible sign of what's happening in this country. Whatever happened to critical thinking? Whatever happened to being humble? Whatever happened to making sure that your neighbors are okay? Or I think that might be law enforcement. I hope they're okay. Whatever's going on in here, I hope they take care of it. Whatever happened to that? Don't say to me it's because cops beat up people or because they kill people all the time. That is not true. Almost 100%. I mean, we're talking 99.999% of the people that get killed by the cops are involved in a felonious activity. And the ones that are unarmed typically get shot because they fought the police. That's normally what happens. If you don't do bad things, you're not going to get in trouble. And if for some strange reason the cops, you have an incident where cops are involved, shut your mouth and don't try to fight the cops. Not saying that there's not some bad cops out there. There's less bad cops and more incompetent cops. That's really the problem. And that, again, comes from leftist mayors and chiefs of police and sheriffs and governors that refuse to allow law enforcement to evolve. And now they're blaming law enforcement for all these things, and they're the ones who are responsible for it. It's not the cop on the street. They don't make policy. They're not the ones who set the training. So I thought that was a perfect example of where some self-entitled rich buffoon who didn't even have the balls to call the police himself to figure out, to see what was happening, had to have his wife do it, almost ruined this whole thing. And again, where did the $4 million go? $4 million? Almost $5 million to follow her? I mean, now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is just to follow up on what I was saying earlier about the game and media you got to watch. As I'm trying to help, this whole show today may seem like a big bitch fest on my part, but I'm trying to give you all pearls of wisdom to help you see the reality of what's happening so we can evolve together. Because if we don't, we're doomed. Okay. But it said on CNN Politics, it's almost laughable. It's like a skit when you, like a comic thing. When it says strongmen rush to remake the world order as Trump faces potential election defeat. Now, when I read this, it's very interesting because what dawned on me is how this is written to make it look like Putin and Xi Jinping from China are seizing control of their nations. Basically, I guess Putin changed something to the point where he's basically going to be the president for the rest of his life in Russia. I mean, Jinping in Beijing, in China, listen, it's a communist dictatorship, basically. They're going to be in charge no matter. It doesn't matter if it's kind of like North Korea. It doesn't matter if it's Kim Jong-un or his sister. It's going to be the same regime, basically, in China. But according to CNN, Trump's failure as a president and as a diplomat and negotiator has allowed these two individuals to, or has caused them to rush into power grabs in their countries. You know, if anything is pushing these two individuals to be more powerful in their countries, it's not Trump. It's the way that the leftists are growing in this nation. Even China, is a leftist communist country. But none of these, this is where normalization and communism comes into play. Once they normalize and they put tanks in the streets, these are the people that they end up killing, these loudmouths. Those are the ones they get rid of. Because no communist regime is going to want one of two things. They don't want freedom fighters, right? They're going to get rid of them. But they don't want activists either. They're going to get rid of them because they're a problem. You look at any documentary about Hitler or any of these other world leaders who were dictators or are dictators. People walk on eggshells around them. You say the wrong thing, you're going to get killed or you're going to disappear. And so I think that Putin and Xi Jinping, I think that they're moving to grab power because of the way this is unfolding in the world. This leftist chaotic movement. They already have their power. They want to ensure that they have their power so that they can basically rid themselves of all these people. That's basically what I'm seeing here. And I think it's kind of ironic how Putin goes on to insult the United States about how they have come to a conclusion nationally and in their laws that marriage is only to be between a man and a woman. But you don't hear anybody really making a ruckus over there because, they'll disappear. Putin will have them killed. It's very interesting. A free society is a fine line between ensuring opportunity, equal opportunity for everyone, and equal rights for everyone. It is a fine line between that and then allowing the activists or the people who pushed for that freedom, that equality, to a point where because it happens with all of them. I want to be equal. I want to be equal. Okay, you're equal. Okay, I want more. I want more. I want more. And it gets to a point where not only, are they insisting that Black Lives Matter, they're also now insisting that law enforcement be defunded. See, it's never let's ensure that all lives are that they matter and that the opportunity is equal and your rights are equal under the law. It's not just that. They have to take that and then go a step further. Perfect example, gay marriage, right? Supreme Court under Obama, they said, okay, gay marriage is legal. But they didn't just stop there. They immediately went after Christians and tried to get their businesses ruined and prosecuted because they didn't want to make a cake or a pizza for a gay wedding. You see, you give people that have, in their minds, been oppressed, or maybe they have been oppressed, and then you give them that equality. In activist minds, that's not enough. In normal people that aren't egotistical or narcissist and that just want to live a good life, those are the people that they are right there, right? They get it. They fought for it, the equality, they get it, and then they make the most of it, but not these people. And this is why I see those power hitters, those communist power hitters, moving so aggressively to keep that from coming in, because even a communist country can be subverted by activists. Because a lot of these activists are just useful idiots. They don't even realize they think they're fighting for this. They're not fighting for that. They think, they may say they're communists. They have no clue about the reality of what they're doing. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is I briefly mentioned this story about Vanessa Guillen. I think that's how you say her name. And she was a soldier in Texas, and she was murdered. And again, these protesters came out and started saying, that they were. If it had been a white guy, they would have been protesting because she's Latina, because a white guy killed her. But the guy who killed her is black. He's a soldier, and when they approached him, he shot himself, killed himself. So now his white girlfriend was arrested, and so now they're protesting in Houston because, and I guess throngs of protesters, just the way the paper or the publication writes about it. The throngs of protesters stretched at least 2 city blocks as they made their way to from Discovery Green to City Hall. So they're going to take this fight to City Hall now. I'm not sure what the fight was. I'm like sitting here thinking it's not a black-white thing because the guy that killed her is black. But they're saying that it has to do with sexual assault in the military. And what's interesting that I'm starting to notice is that a lot of these people who've been calling on these teachers saying that they were racist, and then around the country about different things like that, now they're all turned into sexual assault. So what, I guess the reason why I wanted to bring this up, I said, I knew before this was even discovered who it was, that it was domestic. I mean, it had domestic dispute written all over it. Trash too, man. Let me tell you. Just because somebody's in the military doesn't mean they're not trash. I'm not calling the girl who got murdered trash, but definitely the other guy and that girl that murdered her are trash. But the way these activists work, take this with you, this pearl of wisdom, the way that these activists work, especially communist activists, once they get a foothold on something, these liberation theology individuals are trained in this. They will bring an issue up and they will push that issue. And as they get ground on the issue, if it starts to die down a little bit, they will jump to another issue to continue to cause the chaos. And it is as if they have a victim. The people they recruit to do this have this victim mentality. They are victims. And it doesn't matter if they were sexually assaulted or if they are white and not black. They're gonna jump on the Black Lives Matter. They're gonna jump on the sexual assault matter. They're gonna jump on all these different things. And I'm here to tell you, folks, these are people that show up with no solution to. They don't even know the reality of the problem, and they certainly don't show up with a solution to it. They just show up because they're useful idiots, and they have this victim mentality. And nothing becomes of it. And I think, with that being said, so I want to wish you a happy Monday. And I want you to think about this, okay? Now, when you turn the television on, or you turn on your computer and you look at online publications, or you go to social media and turn on TikTok or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, what you have to remember is that there's a game being played, and it's not a game of truth. The game that's being played on you is one of ideology, ratings, but it is not truth. Leftists control the media. Leftists control social media, and they control the online publications. You have to evolve in your understanding of this. Otherwise, they are going to continue to feed you nonsense, lies, and divisive news. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.